Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. No matter where you are in the world today, now you're on the new way. I'm Dr. Lenny Time, just call me Doc. Um, I am contemplating the insanity of the world at this time. Nothing seems as it is, and everything that is not as it seems. The world seems to be a peaceful place. I can go out into the woods like I did this weekend and hunt mushrooms. But today I have been annoyed by the flies. The flies have been all over the place, and it's supposed to freeze tonight. So I think that it got warm, the flies hatched, and this is the way of taking care of flies for the season. The weather outside is frightful, but a fire's quite delightful. And there's really no place to go, so maybe we'll get lucky and it'll snow. I'm here in Northern California. This is a strange place. I think I'm going to ignore the circumstance and spend my time hiking around in the woods looking for mushrooms. My friend Glenn and I went out the other day and we brought back a big sack of mushrooms, including some chanterelles, which was the first time he had found chanterelles on his own. And it was my first time out for the season. It usually takes me a while to get accommodated to being there. Hey, Neutrino, welcome to the show. I'm just on to talk because I can be, and I noticed that I had enough that I could actually make the minutes work. And so I'm broadcasting through my phone. Not the best way of broadcasting. But I'm talking about the reality of the situation that is insane to wonder because what we have is not at all what it seems to be. I've learned that time is under my control. That's why I'm Dr. Lenny Time. And that I can make things happen due to existing possibility, even though there is no probability at all of it happening here in the now in this timeline. I made a change. I am on an 8-day strong instead of a 7-day week. And so the strong really works well when you have an extra day to deal with things. And the 8-day strong is on a pattern. It starts with mass, followed by form, flow, power, love, sound, mind, and void. Today is void forming. To me, that means that I'm taking off the time to step back and look at things and seeing what's there and what's not there and slipping myself back so that I have a perspective that allows me to see what's actually happening here instead of what's perceived to be happening all over the world. I watch some folks and they make me shake my head because they're just living in a world that they created based on observing the news. Now, news to me is KNEWS, and it's taking what we thought we knew and looking at it again because it's most likely not exactly the same. The school system has taught us how to parse words so they can mean something different to each of us. And there's no real understanding that words mean exactly what I think they say. And so when I use a word, I know exactly what I mean by the word, but you, upon hearing that word, may not have a clue as to what I'm talking about or even worse, may interpret the word to mean something different than I actually meant. I've been watching the fourth season of LARPgate. Shout out to Grim Grizz and the other members of the Virtually Not Alone network. Here I would do some branding, but I'm not in the room. Anybody want a soda? And so that's the way life works. And you just never know how you know, but you know what you know. And what you don't know, you perceive to be, but sometimes you don't know anything. And so we don't actually know what we think we know. Now, I'm a chemist, and I learned the world in the perspective of molecules. And molecules are things that are composed of atoms. And we can take any structural reality and use the Tinker Toy concept to stack atoms together to make a molecule and say what that molecule does. This is a completely theoretical model, but it holds together. Another completely theoretical model that holds together is called mathematics. And we've been taught to count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then to 10. Thank you, Sesame Street. It's all about the 10. Except that nature doesn't count that way. Nature counts 1 0, then 1 0 1 1. 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. And so by the time you're 8 steps into normal counting, nature is 21 steps into what its ability to do things is. And so the ability to do things is definitely conditional on your interpretation of numbers. And numbers has everything to do with the concept of time. So we are bound into a calendar that has Monday through Friday and then a weekend of Saturday and Sunday. And that just doesn't fit with biorhythms or systems or constant flow of pattern. The flow of pattern really says 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and is a doubling function. That makes a completely different limit than the Fibonacci sequence that I quoted earlier, or the normal counting that we've been taught. So you have 3 lines of limitation or top barriers. You have the base 10, you have the Fibonacci, you have the doubling function. There are more, but for now, we can just do those 3. Now, I would like to invite my friend Bruce into the room and let him know that we are on air live. So we're talking to our choir. We're talking about physical number systems, and we're talking about just the way that everything that is not is as we perceive it to be. It just is as it happens to be, and we make a guess on how that all works. So how are you this fine afternoon, Bruce?
I think I'm doing better than usual, Lenny. Thank you.
Better than usual is very good, but usual is usually okay, the way I know that we talk.
In my particular case, usually is usually okay, and thank you for that, because thank you for acknowledging that. But I'm just having I'm just working on having a really good day as opposed to a usual day.
Good. I will make this an even better day, because what I'm going to do is invite Upcycle to join us.
Cool. Okay.
It'll take a moment, but I think that if we watch what happens in the world in the next 3 days, we are going to have our eyes opened on the unreality of what's actually coming. You know, the folks that we call the deep state, which I don't know that they're very deep, I'd call them an extremely shallow state if I had to worry about it. But they seem to have this idea that they are going to float an aircraft carrier through the Suez Canal. Now, I seem to remember a couple years ago a big carrier ship getting stuck in the Suez Canal because the pilot sort of turned it wrong and got locked up on a sandbar or something.
No,
But
he was messed up not in the Suez Canal, but in the Gulf of Suez.
okay,
Big
so
difference.
what's to say that when the big ship is in the canal, it doesn't get disabled and block the canal for quite a bit of time?
Well, I mean, they could do the same thing with the canal down in Panama. You know, if they wanted to shut off the shipping, you know, I mean, there's even more, probably more shipping. I don't know. I don't know what the what. I don't know. I don't know. I almost said the magic word, and yeah, probably there's more shipping in the Suez Canal than there is in the Panama Canal. But I mean, I'm not sure. It would be an interesting thing to do some research on.
Yeah, but you know, China owns the Panama Canal now. So the likelihood of anybody taking it out stems from us and the clown in charge.
Wait
But,
a minute. Wait. Forgive me for interrupting. Where did you hear that China owns the Panama Canal?
well, China owns California also these days.
Well,
They bought up.
I heard that the governor of California, the illustrious Gavin Newsom, we're live, right?
Yes, we're live.
Okay. The illustrious Gavin Newsom just went to China to meet with. Well, I can't pronounce his name, but you know, I'd meet with him too if he wanted to meet with me. I'd rather meet with him than I would with Joe Biden. Joe shit for brains Biden.
Well, you see, the person who runs the world is magic. And so she knows what's going on, but she's not even online anymore because she runs the world. And it really isn't magic who runs it, it's her dog, Juan.
Wait a minute now. This is the magic that I know.
Yeah,
Magic. She runs the world now.
at least in my mind, because nobody is more sane than that woman.
Well, I think it's funny because you know, just as a related ancillary comment, there's this homeless woman who hangs out on Broadway here in Newport. Okay, and you know, because I take my walks and you know, because I'm a friendly character, you know, she always tries to engage with me. And one day she told me, she says, you know, I'm in charge of all this shit. She says, you know, I'm in charge of all this shit. And I just, you know, she says, I'm running all this. I run what's going on. I'm in charge of all this. And I looked at her and I thought to myself, well, if you're in charge of it all, then you know, why don't you fix it? Just fix it. Okay, and that's my advice to magic. You know,
I don't think there is any fix to it. I think it's like a poker game, and it's time to throw in the cards, fold, and redeal the deck completely new.
yeah,
I
but
think that,
you're still dealing with the same players, unless we burn a bunch of them at the stake.
well,
All right.
my idea is that we use something different than money and just stop the banking system completely.
Yeah, that's a
And
great idea, Lenny. But I mean, you know, who's going to go along with that? All right, I might go along with that because I'm I'm intelligent enough to understand what it is you're talking about. All right, but most people would think you're a fucking goofball. Excuse me for the f bomb. Yeah, I mean, really? Come on. You're not going to fix it that way.
I don't want to fix
Harris!
it. I want to end it.
Oh,
I want to
yes.
blow it apart completely. Good
All
morning,
right. Well, I
Harris.
mean,
How
you
are
know,
you today?
but it's not going to blow apart completely. Even if it's like a giant balloon, you know, you're going to stick a pin in it and it's going to go. and it's going to fly all around the place, and who knows what kind of damage it's going to do.
It's
Right?
going to do all sorts of damage, but the
Yeah.
damage is already done. We're
Well,
living in a thing that
they can
doesn't
do a
work
lot
at
more
all.
damage. Speaking of damage, Harris, first of all, how's things in Cyprus? Okay, I realize that, you got the U.S. Navy there and, 2 carrier groups in the Eastern Med just south of you. And you must be able to see them from your bedroom window.
Actually, we can. They can be seen.
Turn up your volume, Harris.
Yeah.
Turn up your volume. I can't hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Okay, that's cool. So yeah, actually, the whole situation. Always Cyprus, for some reason, we are in the middle of everything that goes on, and we can actually feel it and see the whole thing unfolding. One of the things being that a lot of people from Israel, they are actually coming over here because it's a safe place for them.
Sure.
Yeah, we're actually experiencing this work.
You really are. You are an asylum in some regards. My God, you're only how far are you? 80 miles from Haifa?
Actually, there is a very well-known saying here. If a rooster starts and going kikiriku, we can hear it. So yeah, it's very close. It's very close. It's only a few kilometers. Yeah. Yeah. How are you guys? I am very glad to see both of you.
Well, I am currently enjoying the idea of life. My back is no longer giving me problems. So this weekend I went out and went mushroom hunting and found some really good edible mushrooms and took some pictures, and now I get to play with my mushroom key. And once I get back into the idea that that's what I'm doing, I should have lots of good mushrooms to try and eat.
That's
Lenny,
good.
I would just caution you as a biologist, okay, an earth biologist. And I once knew a mycologist who specialized in mushrooms.
Well, most mycologists do. That's what mycology is for.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mention that only because most people might not know what a mycologist really is. Okay? And I knew a mycologist who he had his PhD.
You say knew as if he died while eating something he shouldn't have eaten.
He ate something that he thought he knew what it was. Okay, he had his PhD in mycology. He was teaching at the University of Rhode Island, and he died because he ate the wrong mushroom.
That's kind of why I stick to things like chanterelles and oyster mushrooms. Right. And we found some real nice coral mushrooms, some standard lactillus. And,
I really miss going mushroom hunting. I spent a lot of time in the Pacific Northwest, and I used to go mushroom hunting routinely. And I love mushrooms. God, I love mushrooms. And of course, you're probably familiar with the work of Paul Stamets.
Of course, that's whose book I have is Mycelium Running, which is an excellent book. Yeah. But I'm using his key in what's the big thick book he has? The one that has the key and the pictures in it.
And I'm familiar with Paul Stamets because I've been in the field for so long that I started listening to Paul Stamets when he was just starting to speak, and I don't have any of his books, So anyway, but he's a luminary if there ever was one in regards to mycology.
Yep, he is.
I really like him too. He's excellent in his field. And recently I was discussing with Neutrino about, we were conversing in the Discord about him mentioning that Vikings, they were used to consume mushrooms, a particular type of mushrooms, and before going to war. And it was from there that the word berserk originated. So
Berserk.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we should start a new tribe and call us the Berserks.
Well, berserkers already have their own tribe,
Oh, do
and
they?
so we would be going over somebody else's name. But it's a thought. I don't think we're so much berserk as we're more sane than most people are, because we at least see the nonsense inherent in the system and have decided to minimize our activity to play within that game.
Mhm.
So we create our own new games. They're called LARPs, live action role plays. And the idea is that whatever we decide in the LARP is more true than what we're given as reality. Because after all, the lamestream media news is a big LARP, and we can't believe anything they tell us.
Right. But, I mean, come on. They have so much power that we don't have. And so we're just these little, I don't know what
Well,
I don't.
let's see. We'll see if we can tweak them enough that they come and arrest us.
Okay, well, maybe I need to use the F bomb more often, but I don't want anybody to get arrested,
Well, of
I don't want
course
any
not,
of
but
the three of us to get arrested. We're too valuable in our own tiny, minuscule way to risk getting arrested.
so we'll get deplatformed and then we'll get shadow banned, and then nobody would hear us anyway. Whereas if we got arrested, then we have access to the courts, and they're pretty lame. They don't follow the law. So all you have to do is file the proper brief in the proper typeset, and you can really make them unhappy. But that's the key. They're more worried that you use the proper format on your paperwork than anything that we might think to call justice.
Right. Well said. And I just want to alert both of you guys to the fact that I just published my first blog on Substack. I'm just tired of being on Facebook, and I feel like I'm wasting my time. So I posted a blog on Substack, and I just got a comment from Dr. Naomi Wolf.
Oh,
Who,
okay.
who you familiar with her?
I've heard of her, yes.
Well, she just posted this really kind of an amazing hang on, I'm looking. I'm trying to pull
Okay,
up her
well,
comment
drop
right
us a
now.
link
Yeah.
and we can send everybody there. I have a
Oh,
Substack
no,
account.
no, she just liked my comment. She just liked it. I said there is so much lying and corruption coming from our politicians and the complicit media. They value their agenda more than truth, more than peace, more than understanding. But I will send you a link to her blog. It's called Outspoken with Dr. Naomi Wolf. And it's really, really worth reading because she's Jewish. She has lived in Israel. She has lived in Palestine. And she has traveled in Arabia, as have I.
Well, we have friends who are Jewish who live in Israel who'd be more than happy to come on our video.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I have all kinds of Jewish friends that are, rational people.
But you see, that's not a definition of people to be Jewish. That's one of those things that the media has made up so that all these people seem to hate the Jews for some reason, when it's not really the Jews that are the fault of this. There's this group that you referred to as the deep state that some people call the Khazarian mafia, but
Right.
the people in control of the banking system and the world order just don't deserve any of our attention. We need to rebuild something different from scratch and not pay attention to what they're doing, but pay attention enough to stop them from doing it. But at this point, they're going
And
to
you
kill
have to
off
pay
80%
attention.
of the world. And I didn't take the clot shot, so I'm not going to get busted in that room. But once they turn on the Wi-Fi to 6G and fry everybody's liver and heart, we won't have to deal with all this. We might have to deal with a huge mess because everybody will be sitting in their apartment glued to their screen, not moving, and after 10 days it'll stink to high heaven.
Well,
But
that's why they came out with that movie about the zombie apocalypse, because they were prophesying. They knew what the fuck was going to happen. They knew
yeah,
it was
but
going to happen.
we were supposed to have this zombie apocalypse about 10 days ago when the United States did the test of the emergency broadcast system,
Yeah, but I mean that's
and
just
it
more.
didn't
That's
happen.
just more. Contrived. You know,
It's
media
all
crap.
contrived bullshit. That's the
Well, of course
thing.
it is.
You can't believe
Is
any of
bullshit
it.
is bullshit an acceptable word when you're online, when you're live? I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
have
We'll
you.
have to go get Lenny Bruce talking about the 7 words you're not allowed to say.
Oh God. Yeah, I'd like to get Lenny Bruce, and I'd like to get what's his name? Yeah,
George Carlin.
good old what's his name? I'll never forget good old what's his name?
George Carlin,
George
who,
Carlin. Thank you. You knew who I was thinking about. Yeah.
sure, he's the one who was the high priest in the movie Dogma, who blessed his golf clubs and was able to make it so that the world didn't end because of his vanity. But Silent Bob figured it all out. And for anybody who hasn't watched Dogma, it is the best mockery of religion that you can watch, but it's tongue in cheek.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Alanis
have to watch it.
Morissette
Can you
is
get it
God.
online? Can you get it online, or do I have to pay for it?
I don't know. It's been
All
a
right,
long time since I've seen it.
Dogma. Yeah,
Grizz, you're not in the room.
my karma ate my dogma.
Did it now?
No, wait,
Let's see.
maybe that's my dogma ate my karma.
Let's see. As long as your dogma doesn't get run over by your karma, you're okay.
All
Let's
right.
see if Grizz wants to come in the room. I just
Yeah,
dropped
let's
him
let's
in.
welcome Grizz. Why not?
We are definitely an upcycled Lenny Bruce. Well, actually, of course we are.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. But I mean, this way we actually have an opportunity to speak to a far wider audience. I mean, Lenny Bruce was talking to a crowd of people in
Hey, we're
in
talking
a
to a
theater.
big crowd. We got 5 people in the room watching.
Well, that's just the people in the room. But okay,
Hey,
what you're
Grizz,
right.
I'm not in the room. Anybody
Yeah.
want a soda?
I got a
Okay.
I got a drink. I got a really nice drink here. If anybody's interested, I had a half. This is really, I mean, this is interesting, or I wouldn't mention it. I had about 2/3 of a pineapple, an organic pineapple, and I had a banana, and I put in a mandarin orange and some coconut water, and I made a smoothie. And of course, I decided to drink it with vodka because, like, why wouldn't I drink it with vodka? you know, so that's what I'm drinking. My vodka has been distilled 10 times. So it's like, I can drink a boatload of this stuff and not get too, well, I mean, I guess I could get fucked up, but there's the F bomb again. But I don't get hungover.
That's okay. I stay with my marijuana. That way I'm in a very easy place. Plus, if I don't keep smoking it, I'll never get through the 40 pounds I got stored.
I really wish I could still smoke marijuana, Lenny. I love to get high on marijuana. And the last time I got high on marijuana, I got high with you when we were discussing offline. Grizz. Thanks, Grizz. Yeah, I appreciate that. All right.
You remember, you guys? Sorry for interrupting, Bruce. Do you guys remember that song? It was from Jill Scott Heron. The revolution will not be televised.
Oh, I've heard about that. What is that again now?
No, it was just popping into my head. I was listening to you and I was telling to myself, maybe the revolution will not be televised.
Well,
the revolution will not be televised, yeah. So do you know who first said that? Do you know who said that first?
I think it was, no, tell me. It was Martin Luther King or no?
No, sure. It definitely wasn't Martin Luther King. And I don't know who it was, but I have heard it quite a number of times. And if somebody can tell us who was the first one to say that, it almost seems like somebody from the Grateful Dead, or whatever, just.
The guy that sang that song was Jill Scott Heron.
We will not comply with the revolution.
Yeah.
Sick illusions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a reasonable song, and you can hear it in one of the intros to one of the talk show hosts, the Feral Hippie, at revolution.radio, which is definitely worth listening to and is currently on right now. Oh, what is the game on Friday?
It's the pub game. It's the board game with the monsters.
D&D.
Yeah, it's a cool game that Greece made for the hive mind and for everyone.
Okay, well, let's make it so that I appease Grizz and do 10 seconds of me full screen saying something wise for the game on Friday.
Carry on.
And I'd like to tell everyone that Friday is part of LARP Gate 4, and on Grim Grizz's station, all of us virtually not alone people intend to be in the room. But we're not there now, so does anybody want a soda? Okay.
That was cool. Yeah.
I thought that went very well.
Well, yes, I used all the proper branding.
Me too, yeah.
And people will be able to set off rocket ships. But you see, the reason we cast magic missiles when there's nobody out there is to fight the darkness. The problem is the darkness is not the enemy. The darkness it gives us cover when we need it. And at this point, we'll get to the light at the end of the tunnel only after we've gone and done the darkness stuff.
The darkness is definitely really therapeutic. We all need the darkness. But yes, I'm talking about light now. I'm not talking about evil.
Right. The idea of spinning goodness and evil as light and dark just confuses everybody. And so...
Well, that's only if they're willing to be confused.
Well, most people are. They're still watching that lamestream media. They're still believing things like Joe Biden is president. But if you follow Benjamin Fulford, he's been talking with Kim Gogan, and she's the controller of the world, and she's bankrupted everything. So if we can hold on just a little longer, the space aliens that don't exist will be here in the reality of what they're trying to push us at. So
I keep waiting for them to show up in my living room, Lenny. I keep waiting for them to show up in my living room. The star people. And
Well,
I'm an
they're on
old
the inside in the
devotee of
darkness.
Ben Fulford. I've been following Ben Fulford for a long time now.
Ben Fulford has some interesting things to say
He
that
sure does.
disagree totally with what we get from other sources and are occasionally correct. But you see,
Occasionally.
you can find lots of people out there talking on the internet who know that they're correct and are full of BS. I mean, the tattooed monkey is one of those guys who he's not a fear monger at all. And yet, every time he's on YouTube, he's mongering fear. But he's not a fear monger. He just feels we need to be aware and be very scared because everything we own in the monetary system is, well, it's all a put up. There's nobody ownership of anything. All this debt that they say the United States is in, what are we up to? $33 trillion? Who is it owed to? Is this owed to the Queen of England? Or maybe I misspoke. They say
No,
they
you
have
know who it's owned to? It's owned to the Federal
million
Reserve
people.
Board. That's who creates the money out of nothing, and then we borrow it from them at interest. It's all about the Federal Reserve Board.
Right. And so it seems like if we stopped using banks completely and went to some form of local barter in which there was no middle to get a chunk taken out, that whole
Seashells.
system would disappear real quickly.
Well, I don't think it'll disappear quickly because too many people are completely enslaved by it.
Well, here's the thing. I don't see anybody that lives in a city of more than 100,000 people growing their own food.
Yeah.
It just, how would you do it? Where is the space to do it? The rooftops might be able to feed 10, 15 people.
Yeah, well, and that's really that's a valid statement, Lenny, because that is something that needs to be addressed. Because if the shit ever really hits the fan, and it looks like it's going to,
It does. That's what cow farts are.
cow farts, yeah. I actually posted this really funny picture of all these chemtrails all across the sky, right? And this guy is talking to his girlfriend. He says, "Look, there's cow farts up there. There's all cow farts."
Well, yeah, that's what they're calling the chemtrails now because you're not allowed to use the word chemtrail. So
Well,
instead of calling them contrails or chemtrails, you're just calling them cow farts.
Yeah.
And
Well,
you'll see that sometimes
I'm a daring young rebel. So there we are, and I guess I always have been.
The air with the greatest of ease. He's the daring young man on the flying trapeze.
By the way, what we were saying before about the darkness, I also got into my mind the void, and that is the vacuum basically, and that is dark, but it's full of energy that is untapped. So at some point they will figure out how to get free energy out of there, or something similar, I guess, to that.
Well, you see, we don't have to worry about getting free energy. We already have it. It's just that it's not profitable to release the free energy when they can get everyone paying money to electric companies for energy that they can provide without needing it. All you have to do is drop two pieces of metal into the earth and you can get a current between them. But they don't teach physics correctly any longer. And one of the things we have to do to get things right is to go back and look at what we already know and take some of the complete falsehoods out of the structure, and everything based on those falsehoods would be collapsed, and we'd have a lot of work for some good thinking people to have to do again. It's like biology. Biology says that the brain is where we think. I would like to posit that water holds memory and is there for consciousness, and the brain has nothing to do with it. It's
Now, wait a
like
minute
a
now.
microchip in a computer.
Allow me, please, to to agree with you in some regards.
Hmm.
The brain would not function without water. Water is the most fundamental substance on Earth, with the exception of sunshine, and even sunshine. I mean, water still functions without sunshine. Without water, this planet would not exist. Nothing, none of the life would be here. We are completely beholden to water. And our body is like what, 90% water? And so our brain, while it is a marvel of something, whatever, I mean, we can all, get up and thrust our chest out and talk about our brain, when in reality, the animals are smarter than we are, because they're not arguing amongst themselves. They're not.
No, that's a very key point. The animals are smarter than we are,
Heck yeah.
and we don't know if they're arguing amongst themselves because we don't see them dealing with themselves. Yeah, we might have 2 or 3 cats or dogs who deal with each other, but on the main thing, how the forest ecosystem deals with itself with all the animals is something that humans apply human sense to, and there's no necessity for it. In
Well, and
fact,
what's even more important is what the forest is doing with it in the trees and the plants and the shrubs.
I
they
think
communicate also.
Allow me to finish, please. That is the original consciousness of the earth. Is the trees and the plants. When I was a little boy, I'm not a little
Are they
boy.
made of water?
What?
Are the trees and the plants consistently made of water?
Yeah, but water is what keeps them alive.
No, water is the seat of all intelligence.
Now you're missing something very, very radically important, Lenny. Water
Based on the current existing system?
Water is how it gets up into. They pull it up to the roots, and they pull that intelligence. We were talking about mushrooms earlier. Okay, mushrooms and mushroom mycelium are the way that plants communicate with one another, because the mycelium connects all the root systems with one another, and so the trees can communicate. And my trees right here in Rhode Island can communicate with your trees in Northern California because of the mycelial network. And that's all because of water.
Which tells you that water is fundamental intelligence source, has memory, and that all of biology is basically bullshit.
Well, it isn't all bullshit. It isn't all bullshit.
Of course not. And all chemistry isn't bullshit either. But
No.
until they tell us what they really know about physics, and we're working with bullshit taught physics, we don't have a clue on knowing how it really is until we step outside
really
of
don't
that
even have a
world.
clue about water, do we really? I mean, water is so elemental that we don't have a clue about how it really
Have you
works.
gone back and read Jerry Pollack, The Fourth Phase of Water?
No. And I will acknowledge that you probably have a better understanding of it than many, many, many people, because you have your PhD in chemistry. And water is H2O. Water is 2 hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom. I mean, it's that simple. It's very simplistic, which is why it works so well, and which is why it's so universal.
Right. And if you go back to the idea that water as individual molecules is different from water as a collective, and that easy water, which is exclusion zone water that has nothing in it but water, has a tetrahedral shape and looks a lot like quartz or silica, and it's all scaled such that it's fractal of itself. So if water is on every scale as water from atomic scale up to human scale, what's to say that water isn't the cause of everything that we have, and we need to throw out all the current theory that's taught in the mindless universities and start rethinking how everything works?
But water doesn't change what if water is inside you or inside me, water is still H2O. It might bond with all kinds of other atoms and molecules, but water is still water. It's still H2O. It's that elemental.
The thing about water is that it takes 3 degrees of freedom to be able to store memory. And water as a molecule has those 3 degrees of freedom. You've got the symmetrical stretch of both hydrogens away and towards the oxygen. You've got the asymmetrical stretch of one hydrogen towards the oxygen and the other one away, and 2 of those because either side is different but identical. And then you've got the twist in the bond angle. So everything that happens on water scale is under water's control, just like everything that happens on human scale is under human control. And that's part of the problem. We're probably a fractal of water at this scale.
By the way, I also wanted, I was about to mention mycelium, but Bruce got there before me. And another thing, also, I think this within the sea, there is something called algae. That is also, I think, important in a way. Like, as we have mycelium that is very important in the forest and within the earth, let's say, I think maybe algae plays the same role within the oceans and the sea.
I agree. I completely agree. I completely agree. Yeah.
Doc, what do you think about algae?
Algae is probably an intelligent life form that covers the surface of the earth and can do many different things. But the fact that it doesn't have feet or mobility limits it in certain ways. Algae and
They need television.
Algae and mycelium crossed are like lichen. We all need television, don't we?
I don't. I never consult television. I think television is one of the worst things that ever happened to mankind. You know. And I was walking down the street earlier today because I walked to the grocery store because I don't have a car anymore. So today I decided it was time to reload. And I walked to the grocery store and I came back with a backpack full of groceries. And on my way back, I thought about that very subject. Sorry, some bug just flew in front of me. They're always coming. There's always coming after me. What was my subject? I just lost my train of thought.
Television.
And the grocery.
You know, and I thought to myself, and I started to laugh. I said, television is a constitutional imperative for Americans. All Americans
the Constitution is a
worthless.
The Constitution is a worthless document because it tells you how government is supposed to function, and the government doesn't function based on the Constitution. So toss it.
No, they actually disbanded the Constitution with the Act of 1871. Are you aware of that? The Act.
Well,
oh yeah.
Overlaid.
I'm damn close to loading the bowl, Lenny.
It's important.
With the Act of 1871, they essentially nullified the Constitution. This is what our U.S. Congress did for us and to us in 1871, just after the U.S. Civil War.
Well, here's the thing. I no longer believe any of the history they've told us. I don't think any of that is anything more than a history of war. Hi, Neshama. Yeah.
Well, you got to wonder if they're aware of what we're saying, Nishama, because they're I think they're a little bit more conscious than many humans are. That's for sure.
She's great.
And I used to grow mushrooms. I used to grow mycelium, psilocybin mycelium, and provide it for a goodly population here. You know, for money, of course. Yeah, well, I did it for money, but I mean, I also did it so that I could get myself high as much as I wanted to be.
Oh, those type of mushrooms.
Oh, psilocybin. Yeah, exactly.
At some point, I was growing oyster mushrooms from by using wasted coffee grounds as a super fertilizer.
I have done that before.
Yeah, I was looking into ways to, upcycle things to something better and not only treating everything as a waste. And another thing that I did with the mushrooms was I was researching a lot into truffles, and I came to the conclusion. I was discussing with someone from UK that he came up with a patent that basically you call this guy and he comes up supposedly and he takes your field and he plants some inoculated oak trees, small oak trees, and at some point what he was doing is that
Chris!
I don't know if there's going to be an echo. I don't have headset, so if there's an echo, let me know.
There was, but once you started talking,
Your audio sounds good.
Great.
Would I interrupt? Continue.
Okay, just
you're
quickly.
We're just all yakking away here, and so you're welcome in the group. Thank you very much for showing up.
Yeah, man, I'm so happy to see you.
we are actually discussing all the many facets of water, because water's everywhere, and inside every living being there is more water weight than there is organic structure weight. So my theory is that the organic structure weight is just scaffolding, and that the real meat and potatoes is that the water is intelligent at every level, but there must be something in the physics that doesn't allow communication between levels. And I think that it actually does allow communication between levels, and that the problem is of human origin because they don't teach physics properly.
Have you seen the one where they cut off the leaf?
I have an
With
explanation
the
for that.
energy patterns still there?
Repeat that, Chris.
There's this experiment they did. I think on some fancy viewing material where they have they show one picture is the leaf, and then the next picture is like the leaf after it's been cut off, and how like the electromagnetic signature for where the leaf was is still there, and like
It's still there. Yeah.
even so it's like I think the way that the forms are held and communicated through the water is probably the electromagnetic field thing. But I wanted to let you know that I'm going to dig up the clip of where Picard is facing the crystalline entity, and it calls humans ugly bags of mostly water, and that'll be part of the LARP Gate Year 4 branding, at least for a week or so.
Well, and when you think about it, when you really think about it, okay, water doesn't necessarily have to be it doesn't have to be described by human intelligence and human understanding. Just because we're not aware of how water communicates, doesn't mean that water isn't communicating within our bodies and within our systems all the time.
Humans are how oceans love.
Possibly. I don't know.
All right.
I think I'll
That was a
drop
big-
the link in the
that was a
town
big one.
square. So anybody who might be able to pick up the Discord town square might be able to join us on the video.
That'd be cool.
That's cool.
Now, it seems to me that if we start from scratch, each of us can be a 0 point for energy, and that obviously if we resonate enough to bring enough people together, our 0 point where the energy starts is a collective 0 point rather than an individual 0 point. But that doesn't hold by the group theory that I propose. I think that once you get enough people in a group, you're originating a new different 0 point, but that new different 0 point is the same 0 point as on other scales. And so that by taking different actions and keeping the world of possibility open so that you don't cut off what's going to happen in the future, you can make things happen in alternative futures, not the one that we're cognizant of in this future, but that in fact changes the field of resonance and will work back on this timeline in other ways. So that by
All
opening
right.
up
But you're gonna have to break that into
now,
like 6 pieces. Because
we'll have
like,
to parse them.
yeah, because like I stop at the first one where where like, are you at your lowest? Are you at your 0 point? Well, you're not alone. Many people are at their 0 point, and we're coming together to form a new scalar group. And I figure the groups probably scale at the Fibonacci scale, right? So like
I would agree with that.
So I don't know as long, but like you're like another 5 chapters in all in one sentence, and it's really hard for me to keep up.
Yeah, we'll have to take that and parse it and talk it into a whole lot of different things. But the 0 point is a concept that I think each of us has a different definition of what that 0 point actually is. But once you get to 1, you're on a scale. On this scale, we'll call it human scale. On the water scale, we will call it atomic scale. But if the atomic scale and the human scale are fractals of each other, then each individual water molecule walks around like each individual person on human scale, and that's a scary concept. What are they doing on that scale, and what's the chemistry that goes into it?
Well, if we have 8 humans that are at their 0 point, then we've gone from 0 to 1. We have one group of 8, but I don't know how to otherwise go from 0 to 1.
Well, once you've gone from 0 to 1, it blows away the 0. It's no longer there. But
Well,
you go from 1 to 1.
I would suppose that. Never mind. I mean, this is all conjecture anyway, isn't it?
What this is magical. It's magic.
I always thought that in this thought experiment, let's say, if I was a 0 and I was thinking about myself, I was gonna think about myself as 1, as being 1 and not a 0. So in a way, I have it in like 0 to the 0 power is equal to 1, because that's the actual limit. So I don't know, it goes back to the void maybe. into the free energy found there.
That's right. Right. Void forming was the title of the stream. Have we touched on that, Doc?
Not
Not
really.
really.
In the
In the
doc
doc
calendar,
calendar,
there are 8 ideas: mass, form, flow, power, love, sound, mind, and void. It's actually the Tree calendar from Armando Busick. And they get taken in pairs in that same order each time. And so what happens is that you come to the point where void flowing is the 56th day of the 64-day grid. And it's time mentally for Doc to check out and just relax and get ideas about what comes next. But each of us has our own different calendar grid that starts, well, Armando started it on the date of birth. I wonder if it doesn't actually start on the date of conception, but you can't really tell the date of conception on human scale. So date of birth at least equivalizes it for everybody.
Well, yeah, but what if you determine that, like, all right, well, today's void forming day for somebody, and whatever void forming symbolizes
for me.
as an energy flow, right? Like energy state, not a flow. Like, say, so each combination of the things is going to equal a state of being. And if one can identify those states of being and determine like that cycle in their own life, and then see where they are, whether it was born or conceived, would line up to the way the energy and states actually manifest, I would think.
It would be difficult to collect data to prove that hypothesis.
Well, yeah, any subjective experience data is, but like, since we're talking about participatorily applying the thing, those subjective measurements for ourselves are completely valid as regards to our application of the hootenannies.
Well, I can take anybody's birthday and generate their day on the grid as of today, and then they can track on the grid calendar where they are. But having a 64-day grid made up of 8 strongs is a much more reasonable way of dealing things because you know the pattern. And by the time you get to voiding, I know me, on my voiding day, I want to sit in the sauna all day and not do a darn thing. But I know that the next day is massing, which is to collect a whole bunch of stuff that I'm going to need to get through the next 64 days and accomplish some sort of goal. So since there's Q1, I tend to take the first one as a personal, and the second one as a universal human, and on each grid I go back and pick which I'm playing.
Okay, so for this void forming,
I wish Armando was still here. Armando could comment.
This state of void forming, is that the reason that me and Ups ended up on the stream today, because of those vibrations or the energies at play, or that just you hosting the stream is a result of it being the void forming day?
Well, the reason I'm hosting the stream is because I looked at how many gigs I had to make it through the 29th of the month, and I've got more than 3 million gigs. So I decided that I could actually stream from here. So I started streaming. I invited Bruce, and when I saw various people in the pop up in the stream, I invited them also to join us.
How lucky are we, huh?
Well, in a way, I wonder if this is a form of LARPgate 3 that just took a different derivative and didn't go to LARPgate 4.
You just fractal differentiation is the way of the things in this.
Yes,
Yes,
and each Fibonacci sequence starts from a different 0 point, but when you go from 1, the next number is 1, and back and forth from 1 to 1 just sort of makes it like you lose track of time. There is no time when you're going from 1 to 1. So if you choose one of the ones to launch from, either self or whole, well, what degree is whole? Now, that's a whole nother way of thinking about it. Whole could just be a group of the four of us, and that's
no,
a
no, no,
whole.
whoa! You can't say like degrees and holes and the four of us without me getting uncomfortable. I am gonna go. I don't. I'm gonna do things I don't like to do on camera. I'll be in the audience.
Okay.
All right, and I'm going to take a brief break. I'm going to make myself another drink. I will be right back. All right?
Okay.
All right, don't go anywhere, you guys. I want to continue this conversation. It's very interesting, and I'm glad that we're live, and and that there's people out there that can actually witness what we're talking about. I'll be right back.
Doc, before you said about void flowing being the 56th on day on 64 grid.
Yeah, it would actually be the 58th day
58th, okay.
because it's void, the second step into void. Maybe that's the 57th day, actually. No, it goes through 64. See, that always messed me up, whether 64 was actually 0 or whether 1 was the 0. And I decided that the 64 had the value of 0. You take 64 and divide it into whatever number we're talking about. So 1/64th is the fraction equivalent of massing. And so voiding the fractional equivalent would be 1. It would be 64 64s. So void massing would be 57. Today would be 58.
Well, 64 it's a nice number because it's actually 8 squared, and in my let's say cosmo conception, that's like the charge getting charge. So that sounds proper. Like it's a good number for a grid 8x8.
Yes. Give me a second. I have to find something. There it is.
Hello, everyone. Here at the Assassin's Cafe. Okay,
That's your grid. That's a grid of 64.
that's great.
And so it also is the form of the I Ching.
Mhm.
And there are many, many other ways that 64 works. And it's half of 128. So the doubling function, I think, is like Fibonacci. Some things are limited by Fibonacci, other things are limited by the doubling function. But the doubling function is a higher limit than Fibonacci is. So things that work under the doubling function have a different way of doing things.
Basically, the
Yeah.
the chessboard, it's the same grid, right? 8x8.
Yes, it is. And at one point, I was part of an organization that called itself 8x8. And we actually got to a bank and made it so that we had a formal structure with 8 bank accounts all commingled with each other. So we couldn't be individually followed. And then the person who had control of the bank account decided she needed 3. So I never did get a bank account in the organization. And so I had to say, no, that's it. I'm out of here.
Yeah. Oh, text. Correct.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting when you take the piano scales of the black and white scale and look at how it fits Fibonacci so perfectly. 8 and 5 is a 13.
Mhm.
And I would love to take organic chemistry and assign the valence of carbon to that octave scale and then determine whether it was actually uh, if the organic protein structure and DNA structure sounded like music or sounded like random noise. Because I think it should sound like music, especially if it's harmonic.
Yeah, 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 for sure. By the way, I had a question related with water, and I wanted to ask you. You know, H2O, but there is also H2O2, that is the
Hydrogen peroxide.
hydrogen peroxide. Yeah. What do you think about that process? Like, how do we get to from water to the peroxide?
Oh, it is a change in the oxidation state of the oxygen.
Mhm.
Oxygen in H2O2 has a formal valence of -1, and that means it is deprived of an electron that it wants to have. And so the reactivity of hydrogen peroxide is based on the fact that oxygen would rather have a -2 valence, and water is a lot more stable than hydrogen peroxide. So you put it on anything and it becomes an oxidizing agent because that causes the reduction of one of the two oxygens on the molecule.
Okay. And does this project occur in nature? Like maybe in some vents or something like that?
Yes. In fact, sometimes it is easier to think of chemistry as the movement of holes rather than the movement of electrons. The proton, neutron, electron status of things is a construct. And it's like when Benjamin Franklin, who flying his kite, assigned plus and minus to electricity and got
Mhm.
it wrong. It was backwards, but it was a flip of a coin, and he couldn't tell that there were two possibilities and that there even was a difference. And I quote this Franklin thing and don't believe it at all because it's all a big myth. But it makes sense in describing how we got to this point where our physics that we're taught in school seems to be observable in the world when you actually do the measurements and the constructs it's not at all.
Yeah, myths are useful and even in science. In this type of stories, they explain a lot. What you
Yeah.
said that it was a flip of the coin, I agree with that.
And a
Uh,
lot of times when you're on the cutting edge in science, you're
mhm.
making it up as you go along. And if
Yeah,
the data seem to fit the observations, you take them to be true. But you really have to go back and repeat the experiment numerous times to see that the outcome is always the same. And the outcome is not always the same. It depends on the starting conditions. So, okay.
Gentlemen, I think
Yes,
it's
sir.
absolutely astoundingly humorous that humans are talking about water. Humans
Yeah.
are talking about water, about the consciousness of water.
I don't think there's any question about it. And I think human consciousness is water consciousness. because we're just big dumb sacks of water.
Well, we wouldn't be here without water, that's for sure.
Yeah. Do you guys drink your water sparkled, by the way, or without gas?
Where do you get your water from, Harris?
Something like this, like we don't get gas water.
Yeah, but it's commercial, right? It's commercial water.
Yeah, it's commercial. Yeah.
Commercial, yeah. I mean, I get my water out of the earth.
Okay.
And I think that's really important. I get my water; it comes out of the earth, and it's, well, I mean, I think it's really important where we get our water from.
Yeah, anything that
we all
comes
need
from
water.
a tap, you got to watch out for.
What's that, Lenny?
If the water comes out of a tap, you got to be careful with it. But you're better off if you do not have municipal sewage systems that your community deals with.
Oh God, yeah.
Tap water actually creates stones and in kidneys and all of that, so it's very bad.
Yeah, tap water is well. I mean, any municipal water system is suspect. Okay, there's no question about it. There's times I turn that. It's one of the things I really do not like about living in Newport, Rhode Island. Okay, I get my water from another source. Okay, but I live in my hometown of Newport, Rhode Island, and it's a city environment, and they have a sewage treatment plant. And there's times I turn my tap on to wash my dishes, and the water smells like sewage, and it just absolutely freaks me out. It freaks me out. I mean, like, do I want to live in a place where the water coming out of the tap smells like sewage, and I don't even want to shower in it?
No, and that's why there are some very good water filters on the market.
Yeah,
that you
and
should
that's what we really
consider
need in this house. You're right. You're right. We've talked about this before, Lenny. Thank you.
But I have found that the water quality is enhanced by activating it, and you can activate it as simply by stirring it clockwise and then stirring it counterclockwise. But I pour it through a device called the Wu Wei, and you can use shungite and store the water over shungite, and there are other ways of structuring your water.
Yeah.
But the idea of structuring the water is taking the water back into individual molecules by using force and then letting it restructure itself. And if the water has ions, if it's salted or has something in it, the water won't form back into normal patterns. It will surround and hydrate the things that are there. And so the trick is that you want to get the cleanest source of water you can. And if you're taking it off a tap, you definitely want it to go through some sort of a filter system. Unless, well, if you're taking it off a tap, you can smell it, and you should be able to smell chlorine because that's the requirement in municipal systems. And the chlorine can kill you.
100-pound bags of chlorine, they dump it into the water system.
Which is still much better than dumping the fluoride into the water system. And
that's what I was talking about. They dump fluoride into the water system in 100-pound bags.
Yeah, whereas chlorine, they just pour in some bleach. But again, that goes back to the oxidation reduction that Harris and I talked about earlier. What you're doing is you're assuming that there's enough oxidation power to kill all the organisms. And there's a lot of assumption in that.
Well, what do you think?
I think that the chemicals they add is worse than the organisms.
Well, that's why I drink water out of a fucking spring.
Yep, if you can get it.
Yeah, that's cool.
You know, I mean, I can even tell you. Okay, you have access to this, Lenny. Okay, there's this wonderful spring just a little bit west of you, up in the hills. God, what did they call it? And I learned about this spring from my friend Donnie Brown, who has that house that burned down, in one of the fires.
Well, I go up to Shasta if I can and get spring water right out of Mount Shasta. There's
there you go. Okay, there you go. All right, I'm
good
talking about
headwater
another
source.
spring that's like really closer to Shasta. Even from where you are in Etna, it's closer. And they call it the Fountain of Youth. And it's that's just a colloquial term that the locals use. And I have visiting. Donnie used to have this little house, this little cottage like next to his house. Okay, and he and his wife lived in the big house, and then they had this other little house, this little cottage down actually closer to the Klamath River. Just up from the highway going down the Klamath River. The only way I would have thought it could be better is if they were on the other side of the fucking highway, right? They had a beautiful spot, just an absolutely beautiful spot. And I spent a fair amount of time there because Donnie Brown is a good friend of mine, and so I took advantage of that. And I think he did too.
Well, everything that happens on human scale should be to mutual advantage. And I think that we humans have gotten to the point of looking for advantage in everything to the point of ridiculousness. So that if I make a deal with somebody and I don't get a more or bigger or better deal, I shouldn't make that deal, is just an outrage. If I'm better off than the person I'm dealing with,
that's capitalism. That's what it is. It's capitalism.
Well, capitalism needs to be gotten rid of. In fact, the entire monetary basis of society needs to be gotten rid of. If we did it by balanced chemistry reactions, we could do it much better. But you see, we're stuck in a system that requires you and I to make a deal that's advantageous to both of us, where one of us has the perception of getting screwed. And there's a fair deal.
Wait a minute. Whoa. No, wait a minute. I don't feel any of that on this broadcast right here. I feel none of that. And so I just want to share that with you.
Well, that's because I don't play by the system.
You don't, but I mean, maybe you don't feel the same way. But I do not feel screwed by anyone here. Not Harris. Not you. Not that other crazy fuck who I really love.
I was referring to the fact that if I go out and make a deal with somebody, if I don't win the deal, then I've lost the deal. And there's no winning and losing on most deals. You just deal with it as it comes. So the idea of running a system by balancing equations rather than whoever has the most toys wins makes a lot more sense to me.
Well, I mean, the fact that it's even a deal, okay? All right, let's be real about this. Let's try to be real about this, okay? Let's just make an effort anyway, right? The fact that it's a deal, okay, requires a certain negotiation process. And there's always going to be a settlement somewhere in between. And I'm going to take another hit. Okay, that's where I'm at right now. I'm going to take another hit.
Okay, well, you're taking a hit. Let me point out that The Art of the Deal was Donald Trump's book that he wrote way back when.
Come on, Donald Trump. Come on. We're going to use him as
as an example of a bozo in a system that we have to totally get rid of.
Yeah.
Deals are one of those economic things that we don't need a new deal.
Okay, so Lenny, but let me just point something out to you. There are people, okay? There are people that are abroad now that would think that you and I, and Harris probably, and uh, that other guy,
Grim.
Huh?
Grim.
Grim, yeah. Grim. Yeah. Yeah, that other guy. I was partying with some South Africans earlier this week, I had a really good time, really good time. Bunch of South Africans up here, sailors. Anyway, I was in the middle of a comment, for Christ's sakes. I might have to reload my bowl.
You're dangerous with bowls. We got to take that away from you. You can't keep your thoughts straight.
Yeah, you think so?
Well, we got you confused, didn't we?
Well, who got me confused? Did you get me confused?
I can't do that. You have to get yourself confused.
Well, hey, I'm just, you just intuited that you got me confused. You said we got you confused, and I think
I might have played a role in it. You're very confusing in your statements.
Am I? What do you think, Harris? Am I confusing?
I think you are both great. And just to change a bit the tone, I was thinking about aloe vera right now. Aloe vera, it is a plant that actually captures a lot of water.
Oh, aloe vera.
Aloe vera, yeah.
I got one growing. I got a big one growing right here next to me.
Yeah, it is a plant that carries a lot of water in gel form.
Oh yeah,
but
sure.
it also it needs water to grow. So what you said before, it's like humans talking about water. I imagine a cartoon where aloe veras were talking about water. So I just wanted to share that to make you laugh a bit. Yeah.
Well, Harris, as a what's the appropriate word here? The guy who actually crosses one kind of plant with another kind of a plant in order to make another kind of a plant. Anyway, I'm a grower, okay? I'm a grower, and I've grown a lot of stuff. I've grown marijuana, I've grown psilocybin mushrooms, and I've also grown, rhododendrons and azaleas and calmia, amongst other things. I mean, we're lucky to be here.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. We're lucky to be here.
Were you
we are citizens of this fucking incredibly great planet where that's here we go.
Hey, Bruce, I got a question for you.
All right.
Were you living at the house where we shared on Indian Road when I grew the pumpkin field? And I
don't remember the pumpkin field, Lenny, but I lived with you on
pumpkins and squashes and that, and then Andre made a deal where the owner could bring his cattle onto the property before I had the pumpkins harvested.
Is that why we got booted out of there?
Part of it, but there was salvia growing all over that field, salvia divinorum. And I was looking at it, wondering if I should try and harvest it.
Wow.
But we talked about mushrooms that could be deadly. Salvia can be deadly also if you have the right strain.
I wasn't aware of that. Really? Salvia? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But we had some growing there at an Indian place for years. And then it got out of hand.
You were growing it like you were growing it consciously, not necessarily commercially, but
it was growing as a weed, and I made the conscious decision not to pull it all.
Good idea.
And so it expanded because it had gone to seed one year, and the year that we all left, I wouldn't want to been there with cattle in that yard, because if the cattle were munching down on salvia, that could have been very interesting.
Yeah, they could have all been tripping.
That's right.
Amazing. It's amazing.
I bet that would throw something new into their moo.
I'll bet it would too. Yeah, no question about it. I sent a
All
lot.
right, my
That was
friends.
that was back in the day when excuse me, Harris, but I'll just finish this one little statement. That was back in the day when there was no internet. Okay, there was no internet, and we communicated face to face, or we communicated by words written on paper, that you would send, you would, in an envelope with a stamp, if you were dealing with, well, quite a number of countries, not just the United States of America. And, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but
Well, it's an hour and a half into it, and so in wanting to get along with other things on the day, we'll wrap it up and say thank you to both of you and to everyone watching. And
You sure
we
you don't
have
want to stay
gotten
a little
to,
longer, Lenny?
I suppose we could.
Well, I'm just loading my bowl right now, and I'm just thinking, this is a good time for you to stay a little longer.
People stay just a little bit longer. I suppose.
How about you, Harris?
I was actually getting ready to go on to somebody else's radio show. And I'll put it off for another day, I suppose.
No,
But
go ahead. Go ahead if you want.
Revolution Radio, the Feral Hippie, is on at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 11 o'clock here in the morning. I was going to come on for a brief time and just say hello to a couple of things, and then get some stuff off my mind and go. But then you stopped in, and then Harris popped up and Grizz, and lo and behold, we found a way to burn the day.
Well, what the hell? You opened the portal there, bro. Okay.
Absolutely.
We would have never showed up. We would have never showed up if you hadn't opened the portal.
But you see, every one of these conversations is foundational in getting the new way to be the old way. Because if we don't adopt something different and take a different approach to everything, we're stuck in a system that nobody likes and eats everybody alive. So it's going to eat a lot of alive people to dead here pretty soon if we can trust the media. But of course, that's a ridiculous if. We know we can't trust the media. So how many people on this world are actually people? Are all humans human?
Come on, wait, whoa. Well, come on. There's a lot of them. They're real people. That's the problem. They're real people. They're the ones that are getting in the way, of course, because they're not.
They're background people. They don't really exist. They exist in your mind, and you conjure them up when you need them.
Well, I mean,
and
every
they
time you walk
disappear when
out
you
to
don't.
the grocery store, you encounter these people. Come on, you can. They're not just constructs of our mind. They're real people.
I don't know. I never see them again.
Well, yeah, that's just it. Most of Lenny. One of the things that's so beautiful about life itself, is that everything is once in a lifetime. Everything.
Life, the universe, and everything. I don't know. I don't think it's once in a lifetime. I think we repeat the same timeline over and over and over again until we get it right, but on different scales.
That's okay, fine. All right, you go ahead and do that. Personally, I'm just going to have another drink.
You're virtually not alone with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys, I'm going to drop off. If you continue, maybe I will join later on. It was great.
I don't think we're going to continue for all that much longer, but I'm going to entertain Bruce for a little while.
That's cool.
Good to see you, Harris. And I hope that all the crazy shit going on south of you doesn't interact with you.
It's, yeah. Thank you.
I mean, what the fuck? There could be that could be the start of the next of a nuclear war, right there.
Nuclear war will never happen on this earth unless we believe it can happen.
Come on. Come on.
Could be.
No. It doesn't matter what you believe, Lenny. All right, I'm just here to tell you, okay, I'm on your radio show, but it doesn't matter what the fuck you're believing. Okay? You know?
Well, you see, it does in my world. If I don't believe something in my world, it isn't true. But if
Harris,
it's
put
true
that
in
up
your
again,
world
would
and
you
not
please?
my world, that's okay.
It's a
We'll be in the
it's
same
a
place.
yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. I just hope that this video is like gonna be preserved for posterity.
Yes, I'm going to put it on YouTube, and unless YouTube drops it, I suppose that I can download it. I'll see if I can do that.
Okay, guys. It was a
Take
It's
care,
been really
Harry.
good chatting with you guys. I love you both. Thank you very much.
love you too. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. So Bruce is going on also after he asked me to extend. That's okay. I want to say thanks to everybody once again. It was a good show and it went too long. So we'll see if anybody else watches it out there. But if they do, they will be quite entertained. Be well, everybody, and we'll see you again in the near future.